So the next question, how did this convey with rehearsal? So got the opportunity to really create the best suitable look for Jimmy. So, I wanted to use like a waistcoat, a smart t-shirt to go with that, and just use that as a way of portraying the best out of Jimmy and giving it that particular feel that's going to make him stand out the best of my own inner self from how I studied him, looked through him visually, and what made him the best from looking at, how he looked in 1968 or how he looked when looking at Gavin Creel's images and everything. Just seeing that as a whole and just seeing how tightened down it will get. And, of course, also I explained how I was going to block the whole stage version of it when it came to the actual show, which I'll explain later. But I think the next thing that I kind of knew was how well I could hit the high notes right at the end, with the "Now I've got it bad," because I struggled with that a lot before going into it. When going into the assessment, Carly always kept on banging at me saying, "You've got to try to got it bad," and breathe the bad out, because if you just don't, you're straining on the neck and you're going to go red all over the face, and it's not helpful. So I learnt that from how I got through and approached her feedback, even though it took me a very long time to understand it. But it worked in the end, and it all worked hunky-dory in the end, so it all came together all the way through. So that all kind of got there in the end. And to breathe, especially from the diaphragm, because the diaphragm is a big, reliable source for singing. Because if you don't use your diaphragm, if you sing from the neck or you sing from the throat, all this part here, you're straining the neck and you're going to lose your voice. And no one wants that if you're wanting to do singing as a career. And you got to do it. And you have to be singing every day. It's not nice. I mean, even though we all lose our voice like I am now, and it's not nice. Anyhow, how did the rehearsals go? So I felt like my progress with the song gradually strengthened, even though I made a lot of complacent mistakes, especially with, of course, the "got it bad." That was the problem that I had. But I think overall it got together eventually, because I kind of started learning how to really get it from the more negs I got. And I've always had this feel of applying my feedback a lot quicker. And because I'm not very good at kind of getting that out the best way possible, it didn't work quickly as it could have done. But I learned that, and I learned how to strengthen my own self-esteem in that way and really picture that part of the note right at the end to really get it right. And it worked very quickly at that time. And the standard of it was strong. The way it was characterized was up there. So, and I probably stressed over nothing when I was panicking about that little piggy area. So my strengths. So my strengths were very strong vibrato, without making my neck shake, because I find this with a lot of singers who use very strong vibrato is they can do like start shaking their head a lot, and it gets really, it's just daunting watching that, and it kind of distracts you off, and you just think, keep your head still and let the vibrato stay. Just go, something like that. But the thing that I did really well was keep the character, keep the neck still, not let it shake, don't make traits of it, because, if you're a character and you're fully immersed in that character, you've got to try and make sure you don't use like the Alex Hall traits that you find. Try and find what works for you, because that is something that you need, very clearly, as much as anything else. Next thing I was good at was pace. The pace was steady, so, clicking from one place to the other, even though the pianist was not fully, he didn't really, he got a bit phased off, I think, on a few areas it's probably shown, but I think he kind of got away with it. But the fact that I was more used to like the backing track, and also how it's sung by Gavin Creel in the soundtrack, that I was a bit unsure why he wasn't playing it, but I kind of stayed in that zone, not making it look like I was off the character, even though I thought I was afterwards. But when looking back at the video, it all looked like I wasn't. I was fully focused even on those little phasey moments. But the pace was well done, and it looked like, I had no problem with like knowing the pace, knowing the structure of the song, knowing when to listen in, and also using my head a lot, really listening through my head and remembering how the song goes, because if a pianist goes wrong, you've got to try and make sure that you can really power yourself to the best way possible, because everyone wants to hear you. They want to hear you, not the pianist. They want to hear how you do it, even though the pianist is kind of like the instrumental who's trying to back you on everything. But as you just strengthen it, everyone just wants to see how you don't get phased by that. Next thing, my quick change of facial expression. So my quick change of facial expression is that, when I go, skip the vows and all that rot, tell the minister that I do not, bright and breezy as the birds and beesy as the free and easy as the life I got without her. I had to really stop and think. But because he was saying skip the vows, all that rot, tell the minister that I do not, bright and breezy as the birds and beesy as the free and easy as the life I got. So he was kind of saying, well, at least if I don't get married, I won't have to worry about the wedding vows, having to hear the same boring vows we have to listen to. Do you take this man to be your lawful wedded wife? And you think, I don't want to listen to all that rubbish because I listen to it all the time. And he would just go in and say, and he'd just think, well, at least I don't have to worry about that. But then I don't have anyone to love. I've not met Muzzy's standards. So I think getting that out was really good, and it really strengthened my own characterization of the character. Just really knowing that in my head, even though I didn't think of it at the time, but it was how it really worked for me for that particular moment. So it was all good in the end. And yeah. Next thing, I was not put off by the piano and just kept focus. This is going to happen quite a lot, especially if I go into musical theatre. If the instrumentalists are just don't get the whole piece properly, they are not doing their part very well. If you know your part, because obviously they're going to, the thing that I find with a lot of instrumentalists with musicals is that they just don't know the tune that well, just to play it without having the music in front of them. And this is the thing that I find a lot is, for anyone who performs, when you have something in front of you, it really does put you off really getting that real energy out of you. And even though, the orchestras, they can get away with it because that people aren't as worried about what they do. They're not worried about how they perform. They're more worried about the people on the actual stage who are dancing, who are acting, who are singing. They want to hear them. They want to see how they do it. But at the same time, you want the best music quality. And it's the most memorized, strong music that is given out. And that's why I feel that backing tracks can actually be better than having to have a pianist playing or having an orchestra at the back of you sometimes. If they know what they're doing, then you're fine. And if you have a good conductor who knows how to get them in the right order, it does help a lot. But I think this is the thing that I just cannot stand about orchestras sometimes is some orchestras are great, but I just feel like I would prefer to see orchestras that don't have their music in front of them, because then, it can really sound a lot more tight. So when you look at bands nowadays, I mean, it's a different thing. But when you see that they don't have any sheets in front of them, they're just playing because they know their tunes so well, it drives the atmosphere. And that's the same thing that I want with musicals. I think that's the thing that I really want to see happen. At one point, when they go and see a musical, you can see that the orchestra's really going for it because they know their work, they know their music. But yeah, next thing I'm gonna point out is my weaknesses. So what were my weaknesses? So my use of hands were not really needed a lot, and it looked like it was too much of me. So I do a lot of this. So as you can see in the video, I just go like that. Maybe do it. Got it good. What do I need with love? I've got it good. I do this a lot, and it is quite distracting, and it does kind of give a bit of me instead of a bit of Jimmy. And with Jimmy, he would probably not do that. I need to kind of get myself out my own traits. Because as an actor, you can get away and people probably would know that that's part of your act. But if they're big fans of your work and they see you doing other material and you're still doing something like this, they'll just know that you're just doing something that's just the same. And they get really, they'll probably pick out and they'll probably mock you more than anything. You'll probably get people on Mock of the Week going, oh, yeah, this is Alex Hall. This is how he acts. They don't want that. Because, mockeries happen. But it's the same thing. Don't do a trait that's so you when you're acting. Just get yourself away from that. Pull yourself out of the real person you are and try and find a different character that doesn't show you. Because if you have a same trait, it doesn't look nice. It just looks really off-putting. And it can get quite... it's funny, but it also doesn't kind of make you unique. Next thing that I need to be careful of is some of the words weren't clear and accurate. So, obviously, I remember just making this quite clear, is that some of the words sounded more like, with the skip the bells and all that rot. Tell the minister that I do not, because I went, minister, instead of tell the minister that I do not. It could have been clearer. And it's the same with pace. Tell the minister that I do not. You probably know what that is, minister. If I go, tell the minister, you probably go, what was that? You know what I mean? So making sure that I slow down. Don't rush. Because if you rush, people don't know what you're saying. And it doesn't look like... It doesn't stay coherent. And you need to make sure you're coherent, especially with musical theatre. Because, when you're having to put on over-the-top movement, over-the-top facial expression, over-the-top physical expression, the thing you've got to be really clear about is why you're using that and clearing it out from the diction of how you're speaking or how you're singing. Getting that across is so important. And getting that, for anything actually, for any kind of form of acting, getting that out is it's key. So, getting that forward. And working on mouth structure, because some of the facial expression didn't hit the emotion. So, I'd probably say this is probably from what I saw from my perspective, it looked like I was kind of, smiling at points where I didn't really need to. And, especially with, when I started thinking, or when I was saying at the end, although I hardly know you. You can see it's sort of looking like I'm smiling a bit. But he's going, although I hardly know you. What do I need with love? I've got it good. Really thinking about that. I probably don't do this a lot because I'm more focused about how I sing it and how it's coming across with the jaw structure I'm using. And this is something that I know that I need to be very careful of, especially when I'm trying to show facial expression as well through the mouth, and having to make sure that my projection and the way the song is being articulated is so difficult to get. So yeah, just working that forward and thinking about that really consciously is something that I need to be very pushy on. So yeah, that's it. Next thing you know, of course, with articulation, the one thing I remember, so from the 32 bars I used, so we started from do 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 do. So there must be someone watching over me. Talk about a falling for me. Peter Rabbit's missing footsie. So of course that was the starting point. Peter Rabbit's missing footsie. So then when I started, it was like Peter Rabbit's missing footsie means I won't. And then the articulation was stronger at time. But at the start, it wasn't. It was not strong. It just was Peter Rabbit. Peter Rabbit. Sounds like P Rabbit. I mean, it sounds inappropriate, but you know what I mean. Try to really clearly get that out is what I've got to get out of me. So much. Otherwise, it's just going to sound rubbish. And rubbish sounds don't work. But anyway, the next thing I'm going to kind of get out, and this is it. So my final questions. What will I do to improve my weaknesses? So take exercises regularly, like shaking out tension in the hands to stop myself from going, doing that when you're an actor. Don't do that. Don't do that. It sounds like Tommy Cooper. Just like that. Don't do that. Maybe doing that. Maybe is that. Maybe that could be like my motto. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Something like that. I could do that if I wanted to. But yeah, just using that as a way of stopping myself from doing that particular gesture as a different character. Because if I become commercially big and I'm doing a lot of acting jobs, acting roles, and people have noticed this particular thing, it's gonna become a mockery of me. And I mean, it's gonna probably be something I'll have to get used to as a celebrity. But it does, you probably feel a little bit offended, and you want to kind of prevent yourself from going into that stage where you're doing that. So yeah, I've got to be really careful of that. And keeping my articulation consistent. Keep it consistent, especially with T's. Peter Rabbit's missing footsie means I roll without a tootsie. Got it good. What do I need with love? You know, that sounds so much clearer and so much more concise than if I go, Peter Rabbit's missing footsie means I roll without a tootsie. Got it good. What do I need with love? You know, it sounds no T's whatsoever. There's no T's in it. If you really do pronounce the consonants, and T is a consonant, but it's so key to get the consonants heard, especially the really complex ones like T's. And we're all going to do it. It's going to be a phase that everyone goes through, but it's one that I can really go for. And finally, look at my facial expression in the mirror when practicing and working my lyrics out. So it's finding right facial expression for the particular lyrics, especially in musical theatre. So knowing when to change the way your face, how your mouth is moving, so the way it's expressing emotion. Knowing when to kind of be smiley, then go, or miserable, or sad, or angry. You know, getting that feel of knowing when the right time to do that. And once you put that detail in, it strengthens you as an actor. And that's something that a lot of us don't do because we worry about the smaller things like learning lines, learning lyrics, because we think about that more than what happens after that. And that's why learning those things first is like the basic and the starting point. And then that's where it really challenges you. As Bill Murray said, it's after you've learnt your lines that is the hardest thing to do. And we see it because it's where the competitiveness of an actor and as a performer comes. So, yeah. Alright, that's Alexander Hall done with What Do I Need With Love from Thoroughly Modern Millie from my assessment on the 29th of November. Thank you for watching and goodbye.